Urine Specimen Collection 1 – Standard Back-to-Lab Collections. This section shows you how to collect urine specimens for drug analysis under Chain of Custody procedures. Chain of Custody is the system of controls designed to prove that a particular specimen originated from a particular individual and that the results reported relate beyond doubt to that specimen. Your responsibility is to ensure that the link between the individual and the specimen is established at the point of collection, whilst allowing the individual privacy. Because you do not observe the donor giving the specimen, the collection procedures have to ensure that the donor has no opportunity to dilute, adulterate, substitute, or otherwise tamper with the specimen. If correctly followed, the procedures also prevent contamination and confusion between specimens, which are two issues of concern to donors. With these objectives in mind, we will look at the collection site before taking you through a collection. It will take you about 15 minutes to prepare your area before you start on your first collection. The ideal collection site has a waiting room, a private room with a wash-hand basin, and an adjoining toilet cubicle. Typically, this would be a medical room. The minimum requirement is for a toilet cubicle dedicated to the drug testing program for the duration of the collection period, plus space to complete the paperwork without being overheard, since you ask questions about personal medication. You also need surface space to complete paperwork and to transfer the urine specimen from its collection cup into bottles. The donor must be in your site at all times, except when he or she is in the toilet cubicle. Your equipment and collection kits must not be accessible to the donor or unauthorized personnel. Think about the layout of the collection site you are allocated, and position yourself and your equipment so that you achieve these objectives. Use Do Not Enter signs for the rooms you are using. Clear water can be used to dilute the specimen, and so taps on basins or water pipes must be taped to prevent their use without you noticing. The most accessible source of dilution for the donor is the water in the toilet bowl. To prevent this, use a quickly dispersing colouring agent. The best colour is blue, to colour the water in the toilet bowl, and instruct the donor not to use the flush until the specimen has been handed to you. Reinforce this by using the Do Not Flush sign. If the cistern is accessible, seal it with tape. All potential contaminants, chemicals and cleaners, including soap, should be removed from the toilet cubicle. Liquid soap containers should also be taped to prevent their use. Donors with something to hide will try all manner of tactics to foil the test, including hiding a substitute specimen in the collection area. It is your responsibility to check the cubicle for any place where a substitute specimen or small quantity of potential contaminant could be hidden. Make sure windows cannot be opened from inside or out. To summarize, the collection site must be dedicated to the collection process, with access restricted to authorized personnel. There must be visible access to the toilet cubicle. All sources of clear water must be colored, blocked, or monitored. The cubicle should be completely cleared and checked for potential hiding places. The collection kit for urine back-to-lab samples comprises a collection cup with a volume indicator and temperature strip. The volume indicator ensures you can see immediately that you have sufficient sample. The temperature indicator tells you that it is freshly voided. You must always be careful not to put your fingers in the cup, as you could be accused of contaminating the contents. 2 bottles. The laboratory requires 2 specimens, one for analysis and a twin that may be used in case the donor asks for it to be analysed independently. it is important that the urine comes from a single void. A chain of custody bag. Absorbent material that will absorb the contents of both bottles in the event of any leakage. You also have a chain of custody form and bottle seals that link the bottles to the paperwork. The bottle seals are to provide evidence that the bottles cannot be opened and closed without the seal being broken. Please do not use the seals like this, or like this. This is the correct way and only way of using the seal. You need a security bag, or a lockable drawer, for the contents of the donor's pockets. You will ask the donor to remove outer clothing, including casual headwear and heavy boots, to reduce the opportunity for them to substitute specimens or to try to adulterate the sample. You will ask the donor to empty the pockets of any remaining clothing. You do not want to know what people have in their pockets, merely that their pockets are empty and remain empty while they are voiding the specimen. You can invite the donor to take the sealed bag into the collection area with them, or if a lockable drawer is used, give them the key for safekeeping. Specimen collection. The general rules for collecting specimens are: always use your checklist. Make sure that you complete the paperwork and apply all specimen seals and barcodes as directed. Double-check the chain of custody form to make sure all sections are completed. The donor must give informed consent for the specimen to be analysed. Always greet the donor with a smile. Introduce yourself and show the donor your ID card. Then ask them to provide you with a copy of their own ID. The donor must read the donor information sheet or have it explained. Explain the use of the checklist. The donor must follow the checklist with you, so talk them through it, continually referring to the numbered steps, explaining what you are doing at each point. This will take you through the whole process in a logical way and will minimize the possibility of you making mistakes. If you have any doubts about any step, you can also refer to the Specimen Collection Procedures book, which gives more detail and also has a troubleshooting section. We will now run through a collection from start to finish. Greet the donor. Show your ID and ask to see theirs. Explain the checklist and ask them to read the donor information sheet. You will have instructions on how to complete the customer information section of the chain of custody form. You then verify the donor's identity, asking the donor to reconfirm their date of birth and checking details like the spelling of their name. These details should be completed on the chain of custody form. Note the source of the identification, giving the number of the document but not bank card numbers. Please use clear lettering when completing the form. Then ask the donor to remove all outer clothing. The pockets of remaining clothing must be emptied and turned inside out to demonstrate that no possible adulterants are hidden. All personal items, which may include money and personal documentation, should be placed in the security bag and a seal added in full view of the donor. Invite the donor to take the sealed bag into the collection area with them. Invite the donor to select a collection kit and remove the others from your collection area. Taking the chosen collection cup and bottles, go with the donor to the cubicle. Check that the colouring agent added earlier to the toilet bowl is still present, and do a final quick check that nothing has disturbed your earlier preparations. Making sure that you are watched by the donor, tip out the contents. Indicate the amount of urine needed. Do not put your fingers in the cup. You could be accused of contaminating the contents. Now, hand the cup to the donor. Wait outside, but always within sight and sound of the cubicle door. Being within sight and sound of the collection will allow you to pick up on any unusual behaviour or telltale signs of anything suspicious. As soon as they come out of the cubicle, take the collection cup and check the temperature strip. Make sure that a colour change is registered. Allow the donor to wash their hands. Then, carrying the collection cup, return to the private room allocated, making sure that the cup is in sight of the donor at all times. Place the cup on a flat surface, and then, making sure you have the donor's attention, pour the urine from the cup into the bottles, so that each contains the same amount, and there is the required volume in each bottle, as indicated. Keeping the 2 bottles in view of the donor, take the chain of custody form and ask the donor to sign and date the 2 tamper evidence seals, labelled A and B. Watched by the donor, carefully place the seal over the cap of the bottle and down both sides. Now place both bottles in the indicated pocket of the chain of custody bag. Do not seal the bag yet. You have to complete the chain of custody form first. Use the current medication questions to get details of recent medication. If the donor is reluctant to do this, note this in the space provided. Do not tick None unless they insist that they have not taken any medication. Ask the donor to read and sign the consent to test statement. If this is not signed, we cannot analyse the specimen. Check and double-check the chain of custody form to make sure you have completed all the sections. You must remember to tick the temperature box. If the specimen looks unusual, colour, cloudiness, etc., make a note of this in the comments section. When the chain of custody form is complete, you can then sign and date the collecting officer section. Use the remaining small barcode labels according to your instructions. This may vary from customer to customer. Unused labels should be left on the form. The top white copy of the form should be folded into 4 so that the donor details are not visible. This copy is then placed in the second pocket of the chain of custody bag. Now seal the bag as shown. Disposal of any surplus urine must still be witnessed by the donor, even if this means a return to the toilet area, and take this opportunity to ensure that all your security tapes are intact and that the cubicle looks undisturbed. Put the used cup in an appropriate disposal bag, not in the nearest office waste bin. Washing your own hands must be accommodated as local circumstances dictate. If you use a hand cleaning gel, it must be alcohol-free. Hand the donor their copy of the chain of custody form. The donor may now leave. Place the sealed chain of custody bag with your other collected specimens in your kit bag and prepare your paperwork for the next donor. Troubleshooting. This was a trouble-free collection. Refer to the troubleshooting section of your specimen collection procedures book, which will tell you how to manage out-of-range temperatures, insufficient sample, refusals, and other problems.